So because I'm engaged in presenting course materials, I go quite a bit ahead of where we are now and can kind of capture more in depth and understand what's going to happen. And I was meditating on why Lord Kapila Dev advented. Because as we described last week, starting at this point where we are now in Srimad Bhagavatam until the end of the third canto, practically speaking, the entire Leela of Lord Kapila Dev is being unfolded. So later on, when he actually gives his teachings, it goes very much in line with the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. What came to mind was this second verse of the very beginning of the book, where it describes the highest truth. Does anybody remember what is the highest truth?
Come on, we're all trying to be engaged in the highest truth, everyone.
What is the highest truth?
What's the highest truth? Okay, I'm gonna have to call Nitai. Let's. Oh, there's Pravananda.
Yes, it speaks about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is reality distinguished from illusion.
Ah, there we go. That's what he liked.
Very good. That is the highest truth, is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
Right.
Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. So in the beginning of creation, practically speaking, as we've read, there is the manifestation of this universe, the birth of Brahma, the different Visarga activities that he performed, the bodies and populating of the universe, the killing of Hiranyaksha. And then right there in the beginning, at the beginning of Manu's reign, Swayambhuva Manu's reign, Lord Kapila Dev advents to assist the living entities, to give them information how to deal with this world in such a way that they can leave it. So the highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. And this is the mission of Lord Kapila Dev. So now we'll begin. And also, I included a few verses from last week's lessons and one verse from the next lesson to include in this particular review the entire conversation between Kardama Muni and the Supreme Lord, who came to where he was performing his austerities at Bindu Sarovara and talked with him. So now we'll go over those topics. Sami, you want to pick somebody to read?
Okay. Okay. Sham Govinda, can you read while you're holding your beautiful baby? Also, I just want to ask, hot yoga, can I call you something other than hot yoga, my darling? Unmute for a second.
My name is Kate.
Kate, okay,
Yes.
sweetie. Kate. Oh, Kate, thank you, darling.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-12, verse 12 and 13. When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart, naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers. The great sage Kardama said, O Supreme Worshipful Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form.
Okay, just one question. Did everybody get that? The greatest perfection. The greatest perfection. That's pretty intense term. So what is the greatest perfection again, Sham?
The greatest perfection in the verse says of the sight of you, but I guess it's reality distinguished from illusion.
Well, okay, take the reality extinguished from illusion a step further. When you take it a step further, then it becomes seeing the Lord.
Okay.
Right?
There is no
Because
there is no illusion at that point.
right, exactly. Very good. Thank you. Okay, so let's go on, shall we? With the next verse. Kate, would you read, my darling? Would you like to read?
Sure. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-14. Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. Only persons deprived of their intelligence by the spell of deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them. Should I keep going?
Yeah.
3:21-15. Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desire tree.
Okay, and just one question here about why those feet are worshipped and why they shouldn't be worshipped for trivial momentary pleasures. Can we understand what the trivial momentary pleasures are? What are they? Kate.
All right, can you say that one more time? The last
What
part?
are the trivial momentary pleasures of the
Of the
senses?
senses.
Yeah. So can you explain that a little further?
Well, momentary pleasure, it's impermanent. It's not eternal.
Good. Okay, that's good. Whatever is not, I like to think of it, there's two lanes, the eternal lane and the temporary lane. If we're involved in the temporary lane, that really has a tendency to overshadow the eternal lane, only from our conditioned vision. That was good. Thank you.
One point that we've discussed previously a little bit is kind of emphasized more here as it's going to unfold. Kardama Muni at this point has material desires, but he's still worshiping the Lord. This was brought out in that verse, akama sarvakamo va moksha kama udadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. That whether one has all desires, no desires, or desires liberation, one still should approach the Supreme Lord. So it's one of the themes that will run throughout this pastime. Yeah, just wanted to point that out.
Okay, everyone who's not speaking, remember to mute so that we can hear everything clearly. Let's go on now with Premananda.
Yes, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-16. Kardama Muni continued, O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you, who are eternal time. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In the Katha Upanishad, it is stated that the Supreme Lord is the leader of all living entities. He is their sustainer and the awarder of all their necessities and desires. No living entity is independent. All are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Vedic instruction is that one should enjoy life under the direction of the Supreme Leader, the personality of Godhead. Vedic literatures like Ishopanishad direct that since everything belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should not encroach upon another's property, but should enjoy one's individual allotment. The best program for every living entity is to take direction from the Supreme Lord and enjoy material or spiritual life.
So Premananda, does this sound like a contradiction? And if it's not a contradiction, what is actually being said here?
Contradiction to what?
Well, we always read and we hear about how everything should be totally renounced. And here we see this great sage is praying for something material. And so how is that possible? Why is that happening?
Well, it could be a contradiction if he is trying to enjoy without the direction of the scriptures. But here in the purport, it says that the Vedic literature scriptures allow us to enjoy to some extent, as long as we abide by the instructions of the Lord and the scriptures. So since Kardama Muni had a desire to have a wife and has material desires, he therefore prayed to the Lord for a wife of similar disposition. But again, he's going by the instruction of the Shastras. The Vedic scripture says that, okay, you are allowed to marry. You cannot enjoy outside of marriage. So if you have lustful desires, get married. So it's just following the instructions of the Lord. So from that spiritual perspective, I don't think it's a contradiction. That's my.
Okay. There's another point. That's true. Absolutely. That's the answer. But there is one other point. Can anybody refer to that? That he was instructed.
Yes.
By whom? By
Lord Brahma.
Yeah.
To create progeny for.
And Lord Brahma is he is the Adi Guru.
Right.
So not only was he praying to satisfy his senses, which it's questionable whether he really wanted to satisfy his senses, but everything's perfectly orchestrated. So he was in that position. So if there were any material desires, they would be satisfied. But I think one of an important point is that he was given that instruction by his guru, by the supreme guru. So and there's protection in that. When we're given an instruction by the spiritual master, that means there's protection for our spiritual life within that instruction, even though it might seem, whoa, I'm going into a whole different arrangement here. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Tisha, would you like to read the next? Where is Tisha?
Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, wait a minute. Before you do, it seems like Akshara had a question. Aksharaji, do you have a question?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Now, just one comment on what you were just saying. The spiritual master or Brahma instructed Kardama Muni to have a family and help with the expansion of the family with creation. Yeah. What came to my mind immediately, because this is how to say, very important and typical question for any spiritual aspirant, person with spiritual practice. The spiritual master knows the condition of the disciple. The spiritual master is aware of the strengths and weaknesses of a disciple. So he will never give an instruction that is not suitable for the disciple. So maybe what we see here is two things coming together: the instruction that Brahma gave to Kardama Muni and the role he is supposed to play, as well as his internal condition.
Right. And we see that actually happens a lot.
Yes,
the spiritual
exactly.
master has actually Tri Kala Gyan. That means he can see past, present, and future. He's not a conditioned soul. So knowing that, he knows how to engage his disciple for his evolution back to Godhead. Very good. Thank you. All right, let's go on now with Tisha reading the next slide.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes, please.
How far can the spiritual master see ahead? Like one life or many?
Well, I can. Tri Kala Gyan means past, present, and future. So one with vision has vision means spiritual vision. That's what Prabhupada said that actually. Just because someone is in full knowledge, you don't say, well, come and help me fix my car. That's a different, that's a mockery. Real knowledge means spiritual knowledge, knowledge of eternity, right? When my husband said that verse, the illusion separated from reality. So The spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master is a representative of Krishna, and he has that vision. That's why it's very important to select a spiritual master with that vision. To at least be-
I have a question about Lord Brahma and his sons, the Kumaras. If what you're saying is true, when he first had the first children that he produced were the 4 Kumaras, he gave them the same instruction to populate the universe, and they argued with him. They explained they weren't going to do it. He became furious, and Rudra was born, which caused all kinds of problems.
Well, that was also the beginning of the universe. So Rudra had to be born. And does anybody know? I don't want to take up everything. Who can answer that?
There's also an instance in Jaiva Dharma where one of the gurus gives his disciple an instruction about his bhajan. That devotee performs bhajan under those instructions, and in a subsequent conversation explains that something wasn't sitting proper for him. So the spiritual master adjusted his instructions according to that. So in an ideal situation, there's also such a close relationship between the spiritual master and disciple that they're able to communicate with one another and express oneself. That's the Dati Pritigadnati as in Upadeshamrita, confidentially revealing one's mind and discussing. It's not that everything's predetermined, and it's like, you know, the spiritual master can see the future, so he's telling the disciple what to do in order to attain that future that's already existing. It's a progressive, a lively interaction between them, which brings about that ultimate reality.
So what is that thing? What is that thing? The other side. What is that thing? It's free will of the conditioned soul. It's the free will, like we see it manifest with the Kumaras, the free will. You know, with they were born from Lord Brahma, and they knew. So they had the free, based on their own knowledge, their free will was, I don't want to get involved. But that frustrated, and then the whole thing had to be. It had to be evolving. The universe had to be created, and we remember that at the beginning of the universe, what happened? What was the first thing created by Lord Brahma? Who can say?
The Nishant engagements.
Good, Nishant's engagement. So, you know, then the Kumaras come. Whoa, I don't want to get involved in this. So that free will also.
I like Akshara's explanation in this particular instance, that Brahma's order and Kardama Muni's nature are coinciding perfectly. So let's continue with that.
Well, okay, Akshara, you want to say something? Akshara ji?
Yes. Actually, this is a recurring topic in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And each time it's playing out in a different way. I mean, this is a special instruction for even from spiritual master. I have heard sometimes that there is only one order from a spiritual master that you are allowed to reject as a disciple. And that's if the spiritual master, I have heard this sometimes, to marry. Then you can say, because the Kumara said, well, no, and they didn't get any reaction to that. I'm also not sure exactly if Brahma he's a father of the Kumaras, but they have their own spiritual line. If he's really also their spiritual master, maybe that is not exactly their relationship. I mean, for sure, as father and as creator, sub-creator of this universe, Brahma is the authority of the Kumaras. But I just would like to point out another incident in the Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto of Maharaj Priyavrata. There it's even more controversial, because Priyavrata, he himself was inclined to be celibate through all his life, to practice brahmacharya. He didn't want to marry. And his spiritual master, Narada Muni, encouraged him and instructed him in that way. But then his father, Manu, asked him to marry. And so there was a conflict of instruction, and also his personal inclination was, okay, this is my spiritual master, and I also have this inclination. I actually don't want to take up the role of being ruling the universe and having a family and all this. I want to stay in the renounced order. And then Brahma himself had to come and convince him of something else. So what I would like to say with this is a controversial topic. It occurs several times in the Bhagavatam, and we can see that in each individual situation, it plays out differently.
Okay, so two things. First of all, when you're going to say something, you mentioned that you heard it somewhere. You have to give a reference. This is, I don't take, well, if you can't, then we can't.
I can't. No, I can't.
Okay.
Maybe you have heard it also or not. Then if no one has heard it, we can just forget about it.
Okay. From now on, if you're going to say something, if you don't have a reference, that's an authorized reference, and it's a controversial statement, that doesn't say much. Actually, there's a great quote that
It's in the purports to the story.
I don't agree with that.
oh, it's in the
statement of
purports.
yours.
Well, you don't have to. I'm
Either
also
that
I'm
or
sorry.
Prabhupada's lecture. It is one of the.
Oh, it's one of the
points.
things that Prabhupada said. If the spiritual master tells you to get married,
It's
you
one
can
of,
reject that?
one of the parts of that Leela, yeah.
wow, that's good. Okay.
There's another one too.
Okay.
There's in the pastime of Lord Vamanadev with Bali Maharaj. He rejects Sukracharya, who's his spiritual master's order.
Right.
So it is, as Akshara said, it's a reoccurring theme,
Yeah,
but
it is.
especially this one with renunciation and marriage. But for this pastime, let's just continue on now with the
Okay.
understanding that it's very much in harmony with Brahma's desire to populate the universe, and Kardama Muni's desire, and the Lord's desire, because he will fulfill it. And he's very pleased with Kardama Muni.
Okay, good. That was a nice. Okay, let's go on with Tisha. Please read. Thank you, Akshara, keeping me on my toes.
Okay, 3:21:17. However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussions with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. That is one sentence. Okay, purport by Srila Prabhupada. In order to find freedom from the stereotyped conditional life of material existence, one has to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not in the manner in which the impersonalists indulge, but in the devotional service, chanting and hearing of the activities of the Lord. Only then can one be freed from the actions and reactions of material existence. It is recommended here that one should give up the conditional life of this material world and the association of so-called civilized human beings who are simply following, in a polished way, the same stereotyped principles of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord is described here as Twadguna Vada Sidhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence.
Is that clear to you, Tisha?
I think it's
Okay.
clear to.
Okay. Anyone have any question about that? Okay, let's go on then. Vaishnavi, are you there yet? I don't think she's there as yet. How about Eka Radhika? Would you like to read?
Yes, Mataji, Srimad Bhagavatam 3.21.18. Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Okay, go on with the next one.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The time factor cannot affect the span of the life of the devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that a little execution of devotional service saves one from the greatest danger. The greatest danger is transmigration of the soul from one body to another, and only devotional service to the Lord can stop this process. The time factor is divided into many fractions of moments, hours, months, years, periods, seasons, etc. All the divisions in this verse are determined according to the astronomical calculations of Vedic literature. There are 6 seasons called ritus, and there is the period of 4 months called Chaturmasya. 3 periods of 4 months complete 1 year. According to Vedic astronomical calculations, there are 13 months. The 13th month is called Adimasa or Malamasa and is added every 3rd year. The time factor, however, cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees. In another verse, it is stated that when the sun rises and sets, it takes away the life of all living entities, but it cannot take away the life of those who are engaged in devotional service. Time is compared here to a big wheel which has 360 joints, 6 rims in the shape of seasons, and numberless leaves in the shape of moments. It rotates on the eternal existence Brahman. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So this is a very interesting verse. And this in this purport, it talks about how a devotee's life is not affected. What does that mean? How because we see people are dying. How is that? What does that mean? Can you say, Radhika?
Yeah, Mataji, they're talking here how there's a spiritual, activities, material activities. So when one is engaged in the service of the Lord, one surpasses the 3 modes of material nature. So I'm thinking about that part.
Well, but we see we're going to die. We're all going to die, and we're engaged in devotional service. How is that?
Well, you still can be here in the material world, and you can still be in the samsara circle of life and death. But if you are performing spiritual activities, you are in the different platform.
Okay. Anybody else have something to say about this? This is important, this point. Anyone? Akshara, could you say something about this? What does this mean? That, we know we're dying. How are we exempt from death? What does that mean?
Means
We're not dying. We're not dying.
How is that? We're not dying.
The body dies, but we're not dying. We're never born. The soul, which is who we are, is unborn, unchangeable, immutable. It can never be cut or slain or burned.
Okay, there you go. Okay, first Akshara, because I called it the Cheta. Aksharaji, can you?
Yeah, I think it depends on what platform you are living. If you are living on the material platform completely, you identify with body and mind and all kind of matter, of course you are dying. But if you are living on the spiritual platform purely, you experience at one point that the body perishes, but you continue living and you can experience that. That is what Krishna says in the Gita, where he explains the continuous change of bodies, Bhagavad Gita 2:13, and self-realized soul.
Okay.
doesn't become bewildered at the point of death because he
Right.
feels that he is continuing living, just
Okay.
the body
So the
perishes.
soul is
What's the
eternal.
problem? It's wonderful. I get a new body or I go to the spiritual world. What's
Okay,
the problem here?
Good mentality. Okay, I just got the news that we got to move along a little bit. Chaita, say something real quick.
Just
Thank you.
the concept, thank you, Akshar. The concept is that Srila Prabhupada is still alive.
Ooh, because he's eternal, right? Everyone
Yes.
spoke about that.
His-
We are
his-
on the eternal platform.
His devotional service has been rendered immortal.
Yes.
Just see how it's multiplying even today.
Right.
He's not here physically present, but it's still going.
Oh, he's not physically present. So how is he present? Those two words, Vani and Vapu. Vani, his instructions, his work, his service. So we're on the eternal platform, right? We want to remain on the eternal platform. That means when we leave the body, we'll be used to being eternal already. Everybody did good. Thank you. We better move on now with what is this? Arush Narula. Arush Narula. Are you with us? Arush? I don't know if she's here. Arush Narula. Not yet. Okay, Manvantar. Manvantar, can you read, sweetie?
Text 19. My dear Lord, you alone create the universes, O personality of Godhead. Desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up by your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy, called Yoga Maya. Just as a spider creates a cobweb by its own energy and again winds it up. Purport. The spider is an individual living entity, and by its energy, it creates a cobweb and plays on it. And whenever it likes, it winds up the cobweb, thus ending the play. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of the material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. Here, the very prayer suggests that God is sentient and can hear the prayers and fulfill the desires of the devotee. Therefore, he is Saksidananda Vigraha, the form of bliss, knowledge, and eternity.
Oh, boy, that's wonderful. Just real quick, because we have to move along. But what about that last section? What about that last? Here, this very prayer suggests that God is sentient. So, that's very important philosophy, that the spider does not become nothing when he withdraws and exhibits his web, right? In the same way, this is another proof that the Lord is not impersonal. What do you think, Manvantar, real quick?
Right. Krishna is very personal. Very personal indeed.
Yeah. And how is that?
I agree. He's literally in everything, and you can connect with him from anywhere at any time.
Right.
In any state. It's just like anybody can. I mean, any and every living thing.
Yeah.
It's just a consciousness, right?
Right. And what's that name of Krishna in that form? What is the form?
Paramatma?
Yeah, good.
Are you referring? Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Paramatma. Oh, good. No, that's good.
The example of the spider and its web is also applicable to that. Just like the spider, it's sitting in the middle of the web and can feel everything throughout the network of what it's created in its web.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on. Is that all right, everyone? We understand. Nitai, how about you? Would you like to read? Nitai ji?
Sure. My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with the splendid wreath of tulsi leaves. Purport: the Lord unwillingly creates this material world, but he descends in his personal form or sends one of his reliable sons or a servant or a reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instruction. He himself also instructs in his speeches of Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this material world to come back to him and surrender unto him. Therefore, the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita is this: give up all your manufactured engagements in the material world and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions.
Wow, that's wonderful. Who's another reliable author? We all have to know this one. Who's the most reliable? Yeah, okay. Say it again.
Srila Prabhupada.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada. He's our reliable author. And that's why I'm so a little bit crazy about getting quotes, because he is very reliable. And we have to, if we're quoting Srila Prabhupada, that's very reliable. Thank you. Is there any question about this? Or something you'd like to say, Nitai?
Well, this was the topic of the discussion post. So we already, I think, discussed this, that Krishna, out of his kindness, and because love can be forced, he creates this material world because we desire to be here and to enjoy separately from him. But then at the same time, as a kind, loving parent, he sends his representatives to try to convince the conditioned soul to come back to him. So that was
good, very good. Absolutely, thank you. Let's move on with this. Gopa, would you like to read? Thank you, Nitai.
Thank
Gopa
you.
Ji. Wait for Gopa for a minute. Gopa. Gopa Patni. She's gonna. Okay, going once, going twice. Gopa. I think I hear something. Are you there, Gopa? I don't know if she's there. Okay, we'll come back to Gopa. Akshara, would you like to read this, Prabhu?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet, of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benedictions on the insignificant. To give all living entities detachment from fruitive activity by realizing you, you have expanded these material worlds by your own energy. Purport: unless one is disgusted with the enjoyment of this material world, he cannot aspire for liberation. Liberation is for one who is disgusted with material enjoyment. Vedanta Sutra says, therefore, atato brahma jigyasa. Those who have given up the attempt to be happy in this material world can inquire about the absolute truth. For those who want to know the absolute truth, the Vedanta Sutra is available, as is Srimad Bhagavatam, the actual explanation of Vedanta Sutra. Since Bhagavad Gita is also Vedanta Sutra, by understanding Srimad Bhagavatam, Vedanta Sutra, or Bhagavad Gita, one can obtain real knowledge. When one obtains real knowledge, he becomes theoretically one with the Supreme. And when he actually begins the service of Brahman or Krishna consciousness, he is not only liberated, but situated in a spiritual life. Similarly, for those who want to lord it over material nature, there are so many departments of material enjoyment, material knowledge, and material signs are available. And the Lord provides for persons who want to enjoy them. The conclusion is that one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction. The word Kama Vasham is very significant, for it indicates that he satisfies the desires of anyone who approaches him. But one who sincerely loves Krishna and yet wants material enjoyment is in perplexity. Krishna, being very kind toward him, gives him an opportunity to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And so he gradually forgets the hallucination.
Very good. Okay, I have two questions for you. Liberation. Liberation is for one who is disgusted with the material enjoyment. Can you comment on that real quick?
Well, that's kind of natural. If you are still want material enjoyment, you don't want to get liberated from it. So why should it be offered to you? You're not striving for it. You want to stay here to enjoy it.
I see. Okay, that's logical. Very logical. There was also a reference to those who pray to the Lord for material things, and it was considered that's a foolish person who does that. In one of the previous verses, I think that one of the first or second verses that we read, that someone who prays for material satisfaction that is being offered in even the hellish planets, that person is not considered to be very intelligent. To waste all the prayers on that we might offer the Lord for something that is illusion, that would indicate that he does not know the difference and the benefit between illusion and reality. Okay, thank you. Anyone else have something to say about that? Nice purport. Oh, looks like we're gonna go on. Okay, Gopa, are you fit? Wait, she wrote that no one can hear me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear. Okay.
I left the meeting and came back in. I some kind of technical difficulty. I don't know what it was. Anyway.
Okay, well, here you are. Thank you.
Reboot.
Okay,
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-22. Maitreya resumed. Sincerely, is that extolled? Extolled
yeah.
in these words, Lord Vishnu, shining very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda, replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word Vaskasamritena is significant. Whenever the Lord speaks, he speaks from the transcendental world. He does not speak from the material world. Since he is transcendental, his speech is also transcendental. As is his activity, everything in relation to him is transcendental. The word Amrita refers to one who does not meet with death. The words and activities of the Lord are deathless. Therefore, they are not manufactured of this material world. The sound of this material world and that of the spiritual world are completely different. The sound of the spiritual world is nectarian and eternal, whereas the sound of the material world is hackneyed and subject to end.
Okay, go. What is that sound that is eternal? The sound of the spiritual world.
Om.
Oh,
Krishna.
Okay, and Prabhupada talks about that a lot. He does. He talks about you can't just keep chanting water, 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 right? That's not going to get you water, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and this word
Transcendental
extol,
sound vibration.
yes, that's what we want to be absorbed in. Transcendental sound vibration. We don't want prajalpa. We don't want to hear anything that's from, we only want to hear eternity. Don't talk to me anything unless it's eternal. That's a pretty heavy demand, but that actually after a while we just it becomes hackneyed. I just want to hear about the eternal, because we when we hear something we become attracted, we become distracted. So, and that word extolled means to be praised enthusiastically. So the Lord was also being praised by Cardinal Mooney, and he was very satisfied with that. Okay, let's go on. How you doing, Kate? Are you following nicely, my darling? Do you have anything to ask or add to this?
No,
Kate?
it's really a nice class. Thank you.
Okay. If anybody has some question along the way or would like to make a contribution, even though we're trying to hurry up, that's why we're here. That's why this is Sadhu Sangha, because we want to discuss about the glories of Krishna. Okay. Ian, would you like to read this verse? Ian?
Hare Krishna, I'm here.
Okay, Ian, nice to see you again. Please
nice
read
to see
this.
Okay, so 3.21.23, the Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I've already arranged for which you have worshipped me, well through your mental and sensory discipline. Purport, the personality of God knew the heart's desire of Cardinal Mooney, and he had already arranged for the fulfillment of his desires. He never disappoints his sincere devotee, regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which to be detrimental to the individual's devotional service.
Oh, have you had an experience where you're praying for something and you're just not getting it? And then finally you get that realization that maybe it's not so good for you anyway, and Krishna's doing you a favor? Krishna's doing us a favor by not fulfilling our...
That was one for me? Was that for me?
Yeah. Would it be good for
yes, yeah, all the time. Sometimes wow.
All the time.
All the time, yes.
Oh no, we have to change our prayers because Krishna's never fulfilling them.
He knows what he wants. He knows what is good for us.
Yes,
so,
he does.
He knows what is good for us.
Yeah. So look, but we're still hanging around, so we must have a little faith that Krishna actually knows what's good for us. Yeah. Thank you, Ian. Thank you so much. Ian is coming from the islands. Where are you, Ian? Where are you situated? Caribbean? Ian.
Jamaica, West Indies. Yeah, Jamaica, West Indies.
Oh, Jamaica.
Yeah.
It's nice. And we talk to him as though he's down the street. That's cool. Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Shukshma Rupini, Shukshma, my dear God sister, would you like to read this?
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-24. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, okay. The Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshiping me, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there's never any question of frustration. Purport, even if he has some desires, one engaged in the service of the Lord is never frustrated. Those engaged in his service are called Sakama and Akama. Those who approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead with desires for material enjoyment are called Sakama. And those devotees who have no material desire for sense gratification, but serve the Supreme Lord out of spontaneous love for him, are called Akama. Sukama devotees are divided into 4 classes: those in distress, those in need of money, the inquisitive, and the wise. Someone worships the Supreme Lord because of bodily or mental distress. Someone else worships the Supreme Lord because he is in need of money. Someone else worships the Lord out of inquisitiveness to know him as he is. And someone wants to know the Lord as a philosopher can know him by the research work of his wisdom. There is no frustration for any of these 4 classes of men. Each is endowed with the desired result of his worship.
So could you add to that? What do you understand that? You want to put that back so we can refer to it, Pati? Put the verse back up. There we go. So these four classes of men that we hear about who are pious, approaching the Lord. What else do you see in this purport that actually stands out for you and is meaningful?
That no matter where you are at, the thing is to approach the Lord regardless, and eventually there's purification. In the meantime, no frustration. Of course, there has to be frustration to move on to a higher level, eventually, I would think, especially persons like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration. Nonetheless, to approach the Lord regardless, that's
right. And then if he doesn't, and then as Ian was saying, if the Lord does not fulfill our desires, we have to have faith that actually that desire probably wasn't so good for us. And you got to develop a sense of humor and have a relationship with Krishna when he actually, all of a sudden you feel like, whoa, he's not fulfilling any of my desires. Then we have to think, are these material desires? Are these good for me? We have to basically, have faith and trust.
Yeah, I mean, there does have to be frustration to move on,
Right.
Like, I'm not getting what I want,
Yeah,
so.
you're not. Yeah, that's true. Tisha has her hand raised. You have a question, Tisha? Maybe you can help Sukshma Rupini to answer Tisha's question. Tisha G,
Yes.
please answer.
This is a hard one for me because I guess I feel frustrated a lot of the time. And so then it makes me think maybe I'm really not serving Krishna, even though I might think I'm serving Krishna. There's just, a lot of frustration. So I don't know how to, I guess I'm not really good at, I don't know how to navigate through that to get away from the frustrations of, material things that you just have to do in life.
And that frustrates you.
Yeah, I think am I serving Krishna? Like if I say I'm doing this, I'm cooking this food for Krishna, I just don't know if I'm sure. Am I truly serving Krishna, or is there something in me that's still, there's so much attachment or so much desire for material things. It's really hard.
Yeah, before we go on and Sukshma gives the answer to that question, I just want to say that Mother Sachi, when she was making her offerings to Nimai, when he was actually in Puri, and she was making an offering to Nimai, and she would go out of the room after the offering was made and come back to the pot and see that the pot is still full. So she was doubting also, who's eating this? Am I making it? And so she prepared another plate, and this went on for a while. And then finally a message was sent to Mother Sachi by Lord Chaitanya saying, I'm eating your delicious offerings every day. So because we're in the material world and we see with material vision, we're not understanding. I mean, we all, we're in the material world, and we're trying to have a relationship with someone who's, of course, in charge of everything, but it's spiritual relationship. We went through this with Srila Prabhupada, and yesterday was a day that we saw that very many devotees were feeling, how is my relationship with Prabhupada? Is it here? Is it not? Is it? But there is a relationship. We have a relationship. And we certainly have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada through so many ways, through hearing from him, through serving him. So what do you think, Sukshma, about that, about what Tisha said? Is she engaged in serving? She's offering. Is Krishna accepting what? She doesn't know what she's doing. I mean, not, I don't know what I'm doing, but we keep following. What do you think?
I mean, there has to be spiritual anxiety, to do our service, to connect with Krishna. I think as long as we have the material body, there's frustration and anxiety, but we're doing the best that we can. we're taking instructions. I don't know. That's all I can think of. But, there is anxiety, regardless. As long as it's spiritual anxiety and not material anxiety, we got to be on the right path.
Ooh, that's good.
Can't
Patsy,
always
you
be
want to
happy.
add? Yeah. What? Did you
Oh,
want
you
to say something?
can't always feel happy. That's an illusion. Oh, I'm going to be happy all the time. No, you're not.
Experienced. She's experienced.
But we intellectually, we know we're better, way better off.
Yeah. Just we're waiting for that connection between the intellect and the heart and the soul. We might know it. That's two things. Gyan, maybe Premananda, the difference between Gyan and Vigyan. What you want to say that?
So Gyan is knowledge and Vigyan is realized knowledge, right? So that's the difference.
That's it. So we might know something intellectually, that's Gyan, but realized knowledge comes from, we were discussing it, my husband and I were discussing this morning, purification. That's why we chant. That's why we engage in sadhana. All these things that we're doing is just to wash away the material conception from our hearts, right? So then, keep going. We have to keep going. Okay, let's keep going.
One point before we move on. It's
Okay.
a completely different direction from what you were talking about. If one is truly engaged in loving service, then the obstacles and the difficulties which arise they may be frustrating from one point of view, that a person can't fulfill their activities for the beloved because there's some obstacle. But it's not that the frustration is coming because of some material obstacle. It's coming from a different platform in the heart. It's coming from a place that I want to do this for the pleasure of my beloved, but something's in the way. So those obstacles just become less frustrating. And if one's acting out of love, it's a different type of experience than the material frustrations that are presented before one.
Yeah, impetus is like an impetus. It would be just like Shukshma was saying, that without frustration, how can you move on to the next step? Krishna is not going to make it so comfortable so that we say, okay, we're happy here. There's the next step. Okay, thank you. Let's go on. And Adurya Radha, would you like to read, Adurya? There you are, darling. Unmute yourself now. Yep, there you go. Okie dokie. Thank you.
Okay. 25 to 27 text. The Emperor Swayambhuva Manu, the son of Lord Rama, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmamarta and rules over the air with its 7 oceans. The day after tomorrow, O Brahmana, that celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activity, will come here with his queen, Shatarupa, wishing to see you. He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She's ready for marriage, and she has good character and all good qualities. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you, who are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughters as your wife.
Oh boy. So this is, see, we see that it's being fulfilled, his desire and his penance. That's wonderful. Thank you. Chaita, why don't you read the purport? Thank you, darling. Thank you, Adurya.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Everyone, good morning. Purport. The selection of a good husband for a good girl was always entrusted to the parents. Here it is clearly stated that Manu and his wife were coming to see Kardama Muni to offer their daughter because the daughter was well qualified and the parents were searching out a similarly qualified husband. So, sorry, man. This is the duty of parents. Girls are never thrown into the public street to search out their husband. For when girls are grown up and are searching after a boy, they forget to consider whether the boy they select is actually suitable for them. Out of the urge for sex desire, a girl may accept anyone. But if the husband is chosen by the parents, they can consider who is to be selected and who is not. According to the Vedic system, therefore, the girl is given over to a suitable boy by the parents. She is never allowed to select her own husband independently. This could be controversial.
Yes,
in the modern mentality. But I mean, the results are in. Obviously, things are not with the divorce rate the way it is. Things are not quite working out. So we owe it to our children to give them a fighting chance to find a suitable partner and a sustainable partnership. So in several parts, Prabhupada has mentioned the practicality of Vedic astrology in selecting a partner.
Right. What do you think? Okay, Premananda, in a second, I want to hear what Adorya Radha, what do you think about this? Since you read the verse and Chaita read the purport. You have any comment on that?
Well, I was thinking in my daughter.
Of course.
She's 20 years old now and she's studying, but she's a good girl. And said to looking for husband now is really, really different for other times. Nowadays is supposed to it's half and a half to maintain a family, and it's so really difficult in these times. So many times the woman has to go out for work, and the man many times too has to be at home helping. So it's to approach to the Vedic for the marriage is so really, really difficult, even in to help the woman to find a husband suitable, you know?
Right, that's true. And also the girl has to be willing. That might come up, that the girl is not willing. Thank you. We have two hands raised, Vaishnavi and then Premananda. Vaishnavi, nice to see you here.
Hare
What do you got to
Krishna.
say? Vaishnavi always adds a lot of spice. This is cool.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Well,
Krishna.
actually, you all have heard the term Swayamvara. Have you heard that? Not Swayamvara, Swayamvara. It means, Vara means groom. Swayam means
how nice.
myself. So Swayamvara was in practice before. For example, Sita, how did she choose Ram? Draupadi, how did she choose Arjuna? So these are all Swayamvara held.
Swayamvrata, choosing.
Swayamvara. So
That's to choose your own husband. That's
yes,
true.
yes.
But we're talking about very capable women. That, I mean, Sita chose her husband and Draupadi chose her husband. This is
Right.
different.
So it
This
is not that
ordinary.
Well, what I'm trying to say is it wasn't that they were not given choices. It wasn't like, okay, I am finding a person, his name is so-and-so, and tomorrow morning you are getting married. That is how, when Prabhupada says something like that, we can think this is what is meant by arranged marriage. It is not. That
Well,
is
we were
not
taught
how,
that's yeah. Also, but Swayambhuva Manu, who was in charge of the universe, and his wife Sararupa and his daughter. These are very highly qualified And also, what to speak of Cardamom in the beginning of the universe, and he's doing austerities for so many years, and the Lord himself, it comes and says, I got the perfect person for you. This is
that is
little bit-
definitely different. I mean, when Lord comes and says he knows us, but he is the creator. He
Yeah,
knows the in and
well,
out
that-
of us better than ourselves. So then it is our, if we have 1% intelligence, we will go by that.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. What about you, Premananda? What do you got to say?
Well, I want to make a comment that I'm from India, and then I've lived in this country for many, many years, more than 10 years now. And there are two concepts that the people of the Western countries, they never understand. One is the concept of arranged marriage, and the other is the concept of caste system, right? Caste. So, and there will be so many times where I've been made fun of, ridiculed. My country has been ridiculed, saying that we are uncivilized, we by arranged marriages and so on and so forth. There are no independence to the women or men. We have to go by what our parents choose. But here in this purport, you should see that the arranged marriage is a perfectly Vedic system, where the Supreme Lord himself is arranging the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. So I just wanted to make that comment that whatever we are doing is not blind,
Yes.
something blind. It's just there's a culture that has come down from ages.
Premananda, when you say arranged marriage, our parents choose and we go by that, it almost sounds like women did not have any choice to say no. That is not how it worked.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
We
Exactly.
all discussed, everybody
Right.
discussed.
Yes.
And they and therefore, because everybody got involved, marriage also was successful because parent support was there all the time.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, economically also, parent support was there. So,
Yes.
so
And there
I
was
just wanted
trust.
to,
There is also trust. There's trust. The children trust the parent.
yes,
Which we see. This is of course not manifest in this country. What do you think, Sham? Thank you. This is a far out heated discussion. We have a lot of hands raised. Sham Govinda, why did you say something? Sham Govinda, where'd you go? I thought Sham Govinda, unmute, sweetie, unmute.
Yeah, so it's kind of related to the subject matter, but I just wanted to ask this question because when I heard the audio, it says Mother Devahuti has black eyes. So what does that mean? I mean, because it's her vision that we're talking about here. It's just that her parents are her eyes in this sense, perhaps making the arrangement. What does that mean on her behalf? Because someone who might have a zest for life might shine very bright, right? So what is that sense gratification? Maybe has a lust for sense gratification, but what does that mean?
Black eyes. I took it as being very beautiful. She's very beautiful, and she's very clear, and she's very qualified, and she's being recommended by God himself. That's pretty good credentials. Black eyes is when someone has black eyes, it's got to be magnificently gorgeous. What do you think, Pati? Black eyes. I was also wondering why that.
Beautiful. But I want to take the opportunity to thank Premananda and Vaishnavi. They come from the culture. I lived in India for 35 years and understand the culture a lot better than I did prior to that. People from the West really don't understand. You can't take just a few sentences and think that it's fully explaining. Just like Vaishnavi was trying to really point out that it's not just a demand that of course, abusively, or sometimes that may happen, but in the general sense, it's a very loving, supported, confident explanation. We had a friend in Puri. He was 85 years old and had been married since he was 7 years old. And I asked him, we asked him, you were there, Sama, it was Ramachandra.
Yeah,
Asked him, why do arranged marriages work so well? And in a culture, we have to remember it's not just an isolated incident. It's a whole culture of people that are in agreement with this type of an arrangement. And what happened was that he said that you don't love your wife or your partner, your spouse, when you first meet. but you understand that through spending life together, you will develop love for one another. And you're both so devoted to one another that nothing's going to break that commitment. And when you go into the whole experience like that, it's very different than the physical attraction or other attractions that we have in this country, where people think they're in love, which in actuality, it's more of an infatuation. And they last a few years and then they grow apart. That growing apart doesn't happen in such a culture. So, of course, in Kali Yuga, it's difficult to find that situation, but I just wanted to thank Premananda and Vaishnavi for shedding a little light on that. Appreciate it.
Also,
Growing-
Arundhati, she just clicked off because I think she's also from India. Are you there, Arundhati?
Yes, I am actually. And I wanted to add a little bit of spice to this conversation.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry.
Let's turn it up. And then, Chaita, okay, Arundhati, tell us, what do you got to say?
So when I was growing up, my parents raised me independently and they wanted me to have an arranged marriage. So I'm like, fine, I'll go by what you say. And but the kind of guys they brought, to see me, and I'm like, am I really going to get married to this literally wimp? So what I'm trying to say is that the way India has evolved, with the Vedic culture, is that they want to protect the women, but they don't teach their boys that the boys are supposed to protect the women, the girls. They don't do that. The boys are absolutely pampered. They've never lifted a spoon in their, they don't even lift their plate after they've had dinner. They just leave it there expecting their mother or a maid servant or the wife to pick it up. So the girls have evolved and the boys have devolved. And then they still expect to have this arranged marriage, which no independent thinking girl is ever going to do, So, and then, so that's what it is. And then eventually I got married to a man of my choice who, my parents were not very happy about, but then they grew to love him. So let's see, happy ending.
And also he cleans out his dishes when he's finished eating. He brings it to the sink. Very good, trained nicely. Okay, thank you. And Chaita, would you like to say something?
Just one more thing. I really appreciate that Vaishnavi brought up the point that that the children don't trust their parents in this decision. That's the difference between the Eastern and the Western.
That is
So,
very good.
so perhaps this is a solution. It's that and I've seen this with my own daughter. She goes out, she's on the street, she finds a man, and then at that point, Mom, do you think this guy is right? I say, well, okay, let's consult an astrologer.
Well, that's good, at least. At least she's taking some kind of help.
What else can we do?
I don't know. It's the Kali Yuga is dreadful, and we do the best that we can.
Thank you.
And oh my goodness, what a situation. Arundhati, would you like to read next, my darling? Please come and read. We got to move on because we're going to finish these slides. Arundhati, then Faye.
Yeah, sure.
Then, okay.
Okay. That brings Srimad Bhagavatam 3.21, 28 to 29. That princess, the holy sage, will be just the type you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you to your heart's content. She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you, and through the daughters you beget, the sages will duly beget children.
Okay.
Purport
Wait,
boy.
I think. Okay. Because we have, I don't know how many. Oh my goodness. I'm just going to move on to someone else because I wanted everyone at least to read something. Arundhati, is that all right? Because now we have Faye.
Yes.
And
Please.
Madhurya Leela. Okay, sweetie. Thank you. Faye, would you like to read the purport? Faye, you there? She was.
Yes, Mataji, I am here.
Oh, okay, darling. Okay.
Would you like for me to read one paragraph only so that others will be able to read the second?
Let me see. No, you could
There
just
are
read
5
that.
more slides.
There's 5 more slides, so we're doing good, and I'll go back to Arundhati. You read the whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The fulfillment of desires should be entrusted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the nicest solution. Kardama Muni desired only a wife, but because he was a devotee of the Lord selected a wife for him who was the emperor's daughter, a princess. Thus, Kardama Muni got a wife beyond his expectation. If we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will receive benedictions in greater opulence than we desire. It is also significantly noted here that Kardama Muni was a Brahmana, whereas Emperor Swayambhuva was a Kshatriya. Therefore, intercaste marriage was current even in those days. The system was that a Brahmana could marry the daughter of a Kshatriya, but a Kshatriya could not marry the daughter of a Brahmana. We have evidences from the history of the Vedic age that Sukracharya offered his daughter to Maharaja Yayati, but the king had to refuse to marry the daughter of a Brahmana. Only with the special permission of a Brahmana could they marry. Thus, intercaste marriage was not prohibited in the olden days, many millions of years ago, but there was a regular system of social behavior.
There you go. A regular system of social behavior. And we see today it's pretty irregular. And that's a cause for great concern. Do you want to say something real quick about this, Faye?
No, Mataji, I am a very poor person of very poor choices. The husband I selected was not good.
Right.
So I can't comment.
Okay. Let's Hare Krishna. Thank you, my sweetie. I know Faye for a very long time, so and she's been studying the Bhagavatam, which is wonderful. Arundhati, please read for us.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3.21.30. With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain to me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord said, in order to sanctify your activities and the results of your actions, you will offer everything unto me. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice, the result should be given to me only. In another place, in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices, all penances, and everything done for the welfare of mankind or society. All activities, therefore, whether for the welfare of family, society, country, or humanity at large, must be performed in Krishna consciousness. That is the instruction given by the Lord to Kardama.
Oh boy, those are heavy instructions, actually, because not following them keeps us in the material world. What do you think, Arundhati? Arundhati, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, I'm here. So this is a tough pill to swallow, and I used to have discussions with my Siksha Guru, and then he kind of simplified it for me. He said, you have to work, that's your conditional life. So just go to work, and then take a part of your salary and donate it. And then when you go to work, either bake cookies, which are prasadam, and just keep it on the counter where everyone's kept chocolates and stuff like that.
Right.
And slowly you'll see by, making these small changes, you will dedicate everything to Krishna.
Good. Very good. But that's what the highly recommended system. Whoever goes to work, you have a bowl of candy or bowl of anything. People love to stop by and get a piece of candy, and it's all offered to Krishna, and it purifies the atmosphere. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. Okay. So now I'd like, Kate, would you like to read again? We're almost finished now.
Before we move on, I just want to point out one part of this reciprocation between the Lord and Kardama Muni. Basically, Kardama Muni's revealed his request according to the order of his spiritual master. The Lord is agreed with it. And he's telling him, with your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of your acts, you will finally attain to me. So he's agreeing with him. There's already a relationship, but there's still the maturity that Kardama Muni will exhibit as he goes through this process. Similarly, Prabhupada gave the example of the ripe mango and the unripe mango. All devotees are wonderful, pure devotees of the Lord in the sense that they're trying to attain higher states, but by following the commands and by performing the activities, the orders of the spiritual master, the heart becomes cleansed and perfection will come. You will attain me. Same thing in Bhagavad Gita. What's the verse, Sam? Manmanava mamad bhakto.
Yeah, there are two verses that start the same way. Manmana bhavamam bhakto yajayamam namaskuru. That who knows the definition of that? Who can say? So important.
It says always man manam bhava, always think of me. Man bhakta, become my devotee. Man manam mat yajim, offer everything to me, and mam namaskuru, offer obeisances to me.
Right. Excellent.
And when you do this, you'll come
Right.
to me.
Right. I mean, this is in two verses. It's the exact same thing in the 9th chapter, 934 and 1865, I think it is. Or
We often hear that Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study of Bhagavad Gita. So we see here, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gave the precept, the verse, but here we're reading an actual example of how it's going to play out and manifest in Kardama Muni's life. So therefore it can be like a, sequel, a more advanced understanding of the same principle.
Let's go back real quick. And Kate is going to read the verse. And then after Kate, Vaishnavi, please.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-31. Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as the universe in me and myself in you. Purport. You want me to read the purport?
Yes.
Purport. The simple process of self-realization for every living entity is described here. The first principle to be understood is that this world is a product of the Supreme Will. There is an identity of this world with the Supreme Lord. This means that everything should be considered a product of the Lord's energy, and therefore everything should be employed in the service of the Lord. One's energy should be utilized for one's self-interest. That is the perfection of the energy. This energy can be utilized for real self-interest if one is compassionate. A person in Krishna consciousness, a devotee of the Lord, is always compassionate. He is not satisfied that only he himself is a devotee, but he tries to distribute the knowledge of devotional service to everyone. There are many devotees of the Lord who faced many risks in distributing the devotional service of the Lord to people in general. That should be done.
Okay. I think Eka Radha had her hand raised. Thank you, Kate. Is this clear? Do you want to comment on that?
No, Mataji, it's okay.
The thing that I was thinking about when I was reading the last two verses before we get to the verse that is actually for next week, but we're including it, is the system of understanding that this all belongs to Krishna and our constitutional position is that we are servants of Krishna. That sounds easy, but because we've objected to that, here we are in the material world. It's a really interesting situation. Actually, it's a desperate situation. We must understand our position. Everything is Krishna. We're here to make Krishna happy. And then we become happy, just like Prabhupada uses the example of the fingers. He can say to his finger, go and get this nut. I just heard him say the other day, go and pick up this fruit or this nut. And what? The finger's going to keep holding it. The finger gives it to the mouth and it goes into the system. And everything becomes happy. All right. Who did I say was Vaishnavi? You want to continue? Thank you, Kate.
So actually, To be one with Supreme Lord means to be with the interest of the Lord. Becoming one with the Supreme Lord does not imply becoming as great as the Supreme Lord. It is impossible. The part is never equal to the whole. The living entity is always a minute part. Therefore, his oneness with the Lord is that he is interested in the one interest of the Lord. The Lord wants every living entity to always think about him, to be his devotee, and to always worship him. This is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhava Madbhakta. Krishna wants everyone always to think of him. Everyone should always offer obeisances to Krishna. This is the will of the Supreme Lord, and devotees should try to fulfill his desire. Since the Lord is unlimited, his desire is also unlimited. There is no stoppage, and therefore the service of the devotee is also unlimited. In the transcendental world, there is unlimited competition between the Lord and the servitor. The Lord wants to fulfill his desires unlimitedly, and the devotee also serves him to fulfill his unlimited desires. There is an unlimited oneness of interest between the Lord and his devotee.
Oh boy, this is ecstatic. This is all about individuality. Can you see that? That this is confirming that if I have a way to serve the Lord and I'm absorbed in that, of course, following the religious principles, chanting and purifying myself, that's completely bona fide. It's authorized and it's encouraged. And Vaishnavi might have a different thing that she's attracted to in serving the Lord. Because the Lord's desires are infinite and we are infinite. There are so many souls here to serve the desires of the Lord. What do you think, Vaishnavi, about this very important paragraph?
I have very limited knowledge as opposed to how many unlimited is being used here.
Good, you're limited, but Krishna is unlimited. And so you fit in, you can link up with the unlimited.
That's the hope.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about that? All right.
The way we can do devotional service is also unlimited, like you said.
Yeah.
There's like unlimited facets to devotional service.
We have to understand that. We have to become enthused about that. If we're chanting and if we're following a sadhana that is healthy, then, and we're inclined to serve different in one way. Prabhupada talks about this, about variety. I can serve Krishna like this. You can serve Krishna like that. He said, of course, it has to remain within the following the orders of the scriptures and the spiritual master. But there's so much open. We can be ourselves in devotional service. We really can. Very good. Okay, now Sham Govinda, you want to read the last verse here? Thank you, Vaishnavi. Sham Govinda.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:21-32, extra verse from lesson 7. O great sage, I shall manifest my own plenary portion through your wife, Devahuti, along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories.
Go on.
Purport. There are different manifestations of the Lord. He is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into 2 different expansions, one called Kala and the other Vibhinamsa. Vibhinamsa, thank you. Ordinary living entities are called Vibhinamsa expansions, and the unlimited expansions of Vishnu Tattva, such as Vamana, Govinda, Narayan, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and Ananta are called Swamsa Kala. Swamsa refers to a direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion from the expansion of the original Lord. Baladev is an expansion of Krishna, and from Baladev, the next expansion is Sankarshan. Thus, Sankarshan is Kala, but Baladev is Swamsa. There is no difference, however, among them. This is very nicely explained in the Brahma Samhita 546. Dipartya eva hi dasantaram Abu Pecha. With one candle, one may light a second candle, with a second, a third, and then a fourth. And in this way, one can light up thousands of candles, and no candle is inferior to another in distributing light. Every candle has the full candle power, but there is still the distinction that one candle is the first, another the second, another the third, and another the fourth. Similarly, there is no difference between the intermediate expansion of the Lord and his secondary expansion. Between the immediate expansion of the Lord and his secondary expansion. The Lord's names are considered in exactly the same way. Since the Lord is absolute, his name, his form, his pastimes, his paraphernalia, and his qualities all have the same potency. In the absolute world, the name Krishna is the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. There is no difference in potency between his qualities, name, form, etc.
Right. So we must be associated with Krishna when we're chanting, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Just
Okay.
the main point being here is that that same Krishna will now manifest as Kardama Muni's son. He's explaining that in the verse. The details of how he's a Kala, Swamsakala, is being explained in the purport. But I wanted to include this because it's not that he's less of an incarnation. He is Krishna, as explained in the purport, just like the example of the candle. Every candle has the same candle power. So this is an incarnation of the Lord. It's not a jiva soul that's empowered by the Lord. It is the Lord himself who will become his son.
Yeah, and we were also, we could talk everybody for questions and if anybody wants to add something. But we were discussing this morning that this was in the beginning of the universe. And as we understood, the first things that were created by Lord Brahma were irreligious tendencies. And the incarnation of Kapila Dev is to instruct the living entity how he can come back to him and become perfect in his life. So does anyone else have something to add or any questions? Gopa, you have a question or something to add to this? This has been a real, I don't know what happened. I just wanted everybody to say something. Now I hope I don't get chastised because we're going extended longer. Oh no. But please someone make a statement here so we'll end on a nice exalted note. Chaita, you got something?
Just appreciating the analogy of the candle, which is taught in so many different spiritual paths. It's,
right.
It's very, very reassuring that all the potency
Krishna
is the same. Haribol.
That Krishna in your heart and Krishna in my heart, it's the same Krishna, and he's just fully there for us, each one of us individually. Premananda, did you want to say something?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Oh, okay.
I am in a different thought. Actually, I thought I'll ask a question to to Prabhu.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of understand the flow of the conversation. So this discussion about Kardama Muni and Lord Brahma and everything. So this is narrated by, this is the conversation that goes on between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi. Is that correct? You are on mute, Prabhu.
Unmute, Pat.
Yes. Yeah, this is, I included one slide a little further back. It was for text 21. It says Maitreya resumed.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's explaining here. Maitreya resumed, sincerely extolled in these words by Lord Vishnu. So he's explaining it to Vidura. Maitreya is explaining to Vidura all about the creation according to the questions that Vidura had previously asked. How the universe was set up, what are the planets, how was it populated? And if we go a step further, you may remember that when Maharaj Parikshit asked Sukadev Goswami in the second canto these same questions, Sukadev started to narrate, he said, I'll answer your question by telling you the answers that Maitreya gave to Vidura, because he asked the same questions. So ultimately it's going back, and then Maitreya explained in the beginning of the third canto that the Kumaras actually went down into the bottom of the universe and spoke with Sankarshan, and their hair was wet, remember? So it's all coming through Parampara, because some people, some entities can actually see the whole history of the universe, and they're the ones that are describing it.
Wow.
Does
Thank
that
you,
explain
Prabhupada.
what you were
Yes.
wondering?
Yes, absolutely, because Srimad Bhagavatam is full of conversation within conversation, and it kind of we tend to get lost in between who is speaking this, like where did the original question originate, where did it come from? So
Actually,
it's good to sometimes revisit where it all started.
Yeah, and the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura will continue to the end of the fourth canto.
Tisha, did you have a question or something to say? Tisha?
I didn't. Thank you, Mataji. I just wanted to say how much I appreciate everyone's input and the forum, because I feel sometimes I get a little lost, and I read something and it kind of moves me back in the right direction, and then I get back on track. So everybody helps kind of guide along the right path. So I'm very appreciative of everyone.
Good. Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. That's.
Yes, thank you for everyone's input in those forums. There were some beautiful ones.
Okay. Is everybody clear? And we'll see you next week and see
Jai,
you
Hare
online.
Krishna.
Jai.
Vanchakalpatubhyascha,
Vanchakalpatubhyascha,
Kripa
Kripa
Sindhubhyacha,
Sindhubhyascha,
Titanam
Titanam
Pavanebhyo,
Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Jai.